The voice of Santa Fe on KTRC, Santa Fe's news talk leader.
Don't you know, we're talking about a revolution. It sounds like a whisper. Don't you know, we're talking about a revolution. It sounds like a whisper.
36 minutes after 1 o'clock, head down to Austin, Texas, and visit with Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, who we first talked with, I don't know, about a month ago, 6 weeks ago. She's an attorney, immigration attorney down in Austin, Texas. And she wants to talk about this horrible tragedy that happened yesterday down in Juarez in a detention facility fire. The last I heard, Kate, is 40 dead in the detention facility. Nice to have you on again. Nice to see you again.
Hi, nice to see you. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Interesting that I was trying, I was looking around today after seeing this story, over and over and over again on the national morning shows on television, getting ready for work, and I came in and I thought, well, let's see who's got the latest on this, and I could have missed it, but I don't think so. The El Paso newspaper, nothing. It's a Gannett newspaper, but nothing.
Wow. I don't know why that would be, because it certainly seems like really big news. I'm surprised
Absolutely,
that they're not talking about it.
I didn't see it. All right. What is your take on the tragedy in Juarez?
I think backing up a little bit, why are people desperate in detention in Mexico is in part due to the U.S. policies on asylum that have been in place for the last 3 years. Title 42, namely, kicks all migrants back to Mexico, does not give them an opportunity to apply for asylum here, and that has increased a lot of the population of migrants living in camps and vulnerable to violence, et cetera, in Mexico. So what we're looking at is a group of individuals, mostly from Central America, who were detained by the Mexican government, who, according to the news, had learned that some of them at least, were set to be deported back to their home countries. So in protest, some of them started a fire in the detention center, and they were, left to die. And now it looks like 40 of them have passed away, and probably more to come, because there's still a lot in the hospital.
You're an immigration attorney, and you're in Austin. You're not that far away from Juarez or any of the border towns. A wife today on television with her very small infant child crying and screaming at the window of an ambulance as it took off, saying that her husband had been snatched up off the street for no reason. And he either was injured or dead. I couldn't tell which.
It's hard to know exactly how each of these individuals made it into that detention center. I wouldn't be surprised if they were taken from the streets, if they were migrants and they were being forced through, the Mexican asylum system and held in detention while that was being processed. I mean, presumably that is how that occurred. I mean, there's so much to think about here. There's how does immigration policy impact this? And then what are the rights of people when they are detained? Should they have been detained at all, of course, is the first question. And then secondarily, when you detain someone as a government, it is the responsibility of the person running the detention center to keep everyone safe. Every single person in there, from other people inside the detention center, from natural disaster, from people outside. So I think some people are tempted to when they hear this part about, some of the detainees are the ones who started the fire. That shouldn't matter because they all have a right to be kept safe in there from fire and from each other, from the actions of each other. And so this was a failure ultimately on the part of the people running the detention center, therefore the Mexican government, and then I would argue in part our own government for putting migrants in this position to be held in detention in Mexico when they, I'm going to venture to guess that most of them would have preferred to apply for asylum here in the United States.
I think that's probably a fair assumption. What do you know about these detention facilities in Mexico? Are they state-run? Are they private-run? Is there a possibility that there's a profit motive in this, that they snatch up, as has been in this country? The more detainees, the more money you make. The more prisoners, the more money you make. So you lengthen the sentences for trivial, marijuana possession. So you have more people, you get paid more. Any chance that's going on in Mexico?
Oh, I think that's certainly possible, and it's definitely true here in the United States. We have a private prison complex. In fact, when I first got into immigration, my first trip to a detention center was a place called the Teton Hutto Detention Center, which is right next to a little town called Hutto, Texas. And for the longest time, I thought, it's called Hutto because it's in Hutto. As it turns out, this guy, T. Don Hutto, was the founder of the Corrections Corporation of America, which has since changed its name, but it's one of the largest private prison companies in the U.S., and they have shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
And they are, beholden to their shareholders. And the longer that they detain anyone, the more money they make, period, end of story. And so there's an incentive on the part of the detention centers to keep more people detained for longer periods of time. They love prolonged, indefinite detention because it lines their pockets. And so I don't know the prison industry in Mexico, particularly, as it pertains to migrants or anyone, but I would not be surprised in the least if someone was making money off of the detention of these migrants.
Our guest is Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. She's an immigration attorney down in Austin, Texas, working with many of these different groups. The video released this morning showing the locked, barred door, a wall over in the corner. You can kind of see, I don't know if it was a glass window or just an open space. You can see the flames start. You can see a prisoner put a mattress near the locked barred door, locked from the outside. And the prison guard just wandering around, even as you could see the flames, even as the smoke starts to build up. No move to unlock the gate so that these people would not burn to death. Imagine that, just wandering around aimlessly.
Yeah, I don't think I can bring myself to watch that. It's just so gut-wrenching. I mean, that to me just feels like murder. And imagine the people in that room, in that locked room, who didn't want anything to do with the fire, any of this, and they're caught up in it, and in the actions, the reckless actions, we'll say it, of a couple of the detainees, and the negligence of the guards and the detention center, and the innocents inside who are dead now. It's so tragic, and I think particularly so when you look at it through the lens of who are migrants. I mean, I as an immigration lawyer in Texas, I've worked with thousands of migrants from Central America. So I have a sense of who these people are and what they are fleeing. And my anecdotal experience working with migrants who are fleeing violence is that they really are just trying to get out of a desperate, difficult, dangerous situation in their home country and into safety so that they, just like us, can have a better, safer life and take care of their children and their families. And they're really good, in my experience, decent, brave, impressive people who are just in a desperate and difficult situation. There's a lot of rhetoric out there about migrants being, the criminals and the traffickers, et cetera. But that is not my experience, number one. And number two, if you really think about it, the cartel, the people in the cartels, the people in the gangs, the drug traffickers, they're actually doing just fine where they are, right? They don't have a need to flee anything. They're in power. So it just, if you think about it rationally, the migrants really are the ones who are fleeing danger, and they deserve our help just because they're our fellow humans, Yeah,
most of them reportedly who passed away or were injured in the detention facility from Guatemala. Horrible. And I have zero faith in AMLO or the Mexican government that they'll do an investigation. Yesterday, AMLO came out and, he basically just, sealed it that this was a fire started by some of the people a lot of people who were in the area and hearing the death screams of these people burning to death or, almost burning to death, said that it was started from the outside. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever find out if there's just bars on a window that somebody could have tossed in a burning rag or something into the detention facilities, but I have no faith at all in the Mexican government to get to the bottom of this.
Nor do I, and I'll also say either way, whether the fire started inside or outside, it should have been extinguished immediately, and they should have been taken into safety.
Yeah, and that gate, that locked bar door should have been opened. Right. They could have let people exit the cell and come outside and and detained them there. But they didn't. They
That's
just
right.
chose to either be cowards or complicit in, as you said, the murder of at least 40 people.
Yeah.
Tragedy. What is your website?
It's my name, Lincoln like Abraham, Goldfinch like the bird. So Lincoln-Goldfinch.com.
She's an Abraham bird. All right. What else is going on? You mentioned Title 42.
So yeah, Title 42 is set to end on May 11th, and that is the policy that rejects most asylum applicants at the southern border. And so what that means is presumably, starting in mid-May, we're going to get back to a system where people can come to the border and seek asylum. Now, there's all sorts of other stuff going on behind the scenes. There's a new app, CBP1, that migrants are supposed to register in the app in order to be able to be processed. And there's parole programs for people from Cuba and Haiti and Nicaragua and Venezuela. So there's a lot of other stuff going on, but mostly I raise it in this interview because I think everybody should be prepared. We're about to start to see a lot of changes going on at the border. And I would argue that when you have a system like the asylum processing system that gets turned offline for 3 years, and then it's going to be turned back online, we should anticipate
A flood.
a little mess, a little bit of chaos. And there's going to be a temptation, I think, on the part of the media and certainly on conservative lawmakers to exaggerate it or talk about what a mess this whole thing is. And I think, we can get back to a system where we process asylum applicants in an orderly and a humane and a dignified way, not granting asylum to everybody, but at least giving them the opportunity to be screened. And we need to get back to that. And we got to go through. The only way there is through the backlog. So I just am giving a heads up that I think we're going to see that. And the temptation will be to listen to the news reports about what a mess it is, and just having the long vision, I think, is critical.
Oh, I can't imagine that Laura Ingram's going to go easy on that. She'll scrunch up her face and go absolutely ballistic and start spitting at the camera. But communities like I don't know, Antelope Wells or Deming or Lordsburg or Las Cruces or Mesilla, they can expect more traffic coming across the border.
It'll be interesting to see. One of the things that's happened with this parole program for people from those 4 countries I mentioned, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, is that it's providing an opportunity for people to apply for parole to get in without having to go through the asylum process.
Oh.
And it has significantly reduced the number of apprehensions since it was announced at the border. So the combo of that plus the lifting of Title 42 may mean that we actually don't see all that much change. That's my hope, of course, but we'll see. And, maybe not. Maybe we will start to see more apprehensions. But also, we don't have open borders. We don't have porous borders. We have a very well-funded Department of Homeland Security and Border Patrol Agency who are capable of manning the southern border. And there's no reason to panic, despite what a lot of people would say. There just is no reason to panic. And also keeping in mind, the vast majority are migrants who are fleeing violence to get themselves into safety in a better situation.
Do you have issues with Secretary Becerra of Homeland Security? Do you have issues with how Border Patrol has operated during the last 2 years? We'll leave off the 4 years of Trump.
Sure.
I think everybody. What about now?
I would say my biggest problem arose during about 2 years ago when we lifted Title 42 for the unaccompanied migrant kids. And, your listeners may recall when we had all of those migrant children just lost in the system and in these detention centers, and their families couldn't reach them. And that's a small version of what we could see coming up. But I think that there was a lack of care put on the needs of children. And I think that continues. We do see abuses by Border Patrol, certainly in the way that they treat migrants, but in these processing centers, they're referred to by the migrants as hieleras, which means like icebox or fridge. They're deliberately kept very cold. The food, the treatment is subpar. And I think that we, can do better. I think we should treat people better than that.
Thank you for your time today. We may be connecting with you, as you say, as Title 42 is lifted in the first couple weeks of May, and we'll see what happens, and maybe we can talk more about it as it unfolds.
I'll be happy to join. Thanks for having me on today.
Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, Lincoln-Goldfinch.com. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.